Hello, everybody. It's Brian Anderson again. I'm here with Local Lead Driver Module 4, and today we're going to talk about pricing. So let's get down to it. This is a very important part of the whole project because how you priced, has to encompass your outsourcing costs, any other fixed costs you have, and it has to make you enough profit that you're going to have a successful business. And very, very important here that we talk about that. Let's get started. So it really is a strategy, and I know you hear that all the time, but pricing strategy involves finding that they call it elasticity, that you want to find the point where people will buy without alienating too many people because the price is too high, so you have fewer buyers, or without making it so cheap that you get everybody out there and you left money on the table. So, very, very important that we solve this. And there is no one right answer. It's going to vary in every instance. So I want you to keep that in mind. Let's proceed and we'll talk about this together. 3 models we're going to talk about today. There are probably 5 or 6 other ones you could use. These are just the 3 that I've used. And there's no one right way. It's going to vary on the niche. So the first one is obviously an oldie but a goodie, and this one works well. So it's the pay for results. In this case, you're going to sell the business owner on a results-based model where you're not asking him for any fixed monthly costs. Now, I typically don't ask for a setup fee. I want to make it a no-brainer. The only thing I want to get at time of sale is his credit card and billing information on my little authorization form. When I get that, I'm pretty happy because remember, I'm billing either weekly or bi-weekly in almost every case. So I'm not very far from the cash. I'm not even 30 days from the cash, right? And it's all about generating leads and charging a flat price per lead. Now, this is attractive to the business owner for obvious reasons. They're not going to be ripped off or pay for something they didn't get value. They can buy in confidence knowing that only will they pay for results. Now, you're going to agree on results up front. I like to do something like this. Calls that are over 30 seconds, right? And no soliciting or telemarketing call no matter what the length is. So that's what I define as a result, like a quality lead. You're going to fix that any way you want. And that's why the tracking software, I know I harp on this, the tracking software is so key. So with this model, pay for results. You're going to charge a flat price per lead. You're not going to hit them with any upfront cost. Now, obviously, this will make it very easy for you to get in the door at almost anywhere. And Sid and Valerie will talk about this during objections and during the sales process. We'll also cover it during some of our webinar modules that we'll do. So a second model that you can employ is a minimum fee model. And I know lots of people that do this. Let's talk about it. You may or may not charge a setup fee, right? And if you do, I recommend a small one because you really do have some fixed costs. Let's say you get 5 numbers. That's $5 right there, on our system. And, and you have a few other things. You've got, your share of hosting and other kind of costs. It's very, very minimal. So if you charged $50 or $100 to make sure you weren't in the hole, it would be fair and not unreasonable. You just have to decide if that makes sense for you. Now, you could do something like this. You get the first 10 leads we generate every month for $150. So your minimum bill is $150, right? Now, this is in a monthly model here. And that's an effective price per lead of $15. Additional leads beyond the first 10 are then at a different price. In this case, it's a higher price. So you may do... my math on the slide is wrong. The additional leads would be $20. I have it written down for 15. But you get the point. The first 10 leads out of that $150 are $15. Additional leads would be $20. And what you've done is you've guaranteed $150, and then that business owner knows that, hey, the first 10 leads, I'm going to pay this. And they just kind of have a number in their head, and it helps to kind of establish it as, hey, this is a bill rate. You could even tell them how many calls you expect to deliver. Now, you may not know, like even I really don't know in any given month. I could have a range from 20 to 50. A lot of it just depends on the traffic on our directory sites that we're using. Because remember, in this model, we use no SEO, no reputation management, no mobile, and no social media. So this is kind of a minimum fee model. Model 3, think about the post office, right? They offer the U.S. Post Office offers flat rate pricing if you can fit it in the box. And so you've seen people try to stuff all kinds of crazy stuff in the box, and they have different size boxes. It's also very simple. You can, once again, charge a setup fee or not. It's up to you. But in this model, you're going to charge a flat fee for the lead gen services regardless of the quantity or quality that you generate. Now, let's talk about that. You may think, why the heck would I ever do that? And I'm sure other people out there would tell you, never do that. Well, here's why. There are some industries, let me give you an example, automotive. Automotive will not pay you per lead. 99.99% of the car lots, dealerships, etc. will not pay you per lead. They don't want that exposure open. So what you can do in automotive is charge a flat price. And as long as you just tell them, give them some guidelines. I'm going to generate typically 75 to 150 leads a month. Your cost is $1,500 a month, and the price will vary. And there are other niches like this as well. And you know what? You may find that some people would sign with you if they knew what their exposure was every month. So if you knew you can get a guy for $750 a month, but you couldn't get him for free because he's scared you generate too many calls. Now, his mindset is wrong, because if you're generating a lot of calls, his revenue should increase equally, right? But if you knew this is a model when the guy says, oh, there's no way, I'm not going to do that, as an objection, I'm not going to let you bill me $32.50 a lead. Well, you say, all right, it's $750, no matter how many leads I generate. Now, it may work out better for me, or it may work out that you get a heck of a deal. It just depends on the month, and it's going to vary. And it may just be not having that exposure is attractive to the business owner, right? And it's truly a mindset. Now, here's a picture. It's not the best quality graphic, but the doctor on the left's talking to this lady, and she's reading a bill. I see $10,000 total. Hey, that sounds just fine. Great. But then when you look at it on the right, she says, what the heck? $1,000 a minute? Screw you. She's irate. She becomes crazed out of her mind. It truly is perception. There is no one right answer, and you have to learn how to adapt and work with that so that you don't alienate a prospective client, because you can just shift your model, right? It's psychology. So many people will buy, in our market, $7, $17.27. We often see that. Is it really that different, 24 versus 23.79? There is a psychology at play that's designed to get the buyer to purchase based upon the price. So let's look at a couple scenarios. In this scenario, with an air conditioning contractor, this is a niche I work with a lot, so it's easy for me to talk about it. I typically charge between $25 and $32 a lead, exclusive. Just depends on how beat up I get when I'm trying to close this. So let's just use $25 because it's easy to work with. If you generate 35 calls, you see the $875. If you generate 50 calls, this is in a month model in this case, because my AC guys I'm actually pretty tight with now, and I bill them monthly just to keep it easy for them. But if they were new, I would still bill them every 1 or 2 weeks. 75 calls, $1875. That's a month, yes. So, and if you used an outsourcer, you'd want to price in a way that you can pay the outsourcer and still have a reasonable profit. Only you know what that is. Using the example we gave you in Module 3, using that example, we have $200 using Nick, the Atlanta-based outsourcer. For $200, he's going to post multiple times a day in the directory sites for you, generating the phone calls. He's going to create the ads. He's going to do all that work. You don't have to do anything. Now, you have to pay him up front because he obviously doesn't want you to be stiffed and then likely him to be stiffed. So You have exposure in this case, but at $200 a month with 35 calls, you net $675 on autopilot. At 50 calls, you're netting just over 1,000 at 1,050. And at 75 calls under the same pricing model, Nick doesn't get paid more when you generate more calls. His cost goes down proportionally, right, with 75 calls. 1675 profit to you in this case. And that $25 is very, very reasonable. If you look at the Service Magic, now known as Home Advisor, their pricing model, they're much higher than this for exclusive leads. We'll talk about that. Another scenario, let's talk about instead of a per lead model, let's talk about a flat fee model. I have worked with over 50 used car dealerships in 2013 on a monthly flat fee model. It's ranged anywhere from $1,000 to $3,000 a month. So I put $1,500 down for our example here. Now, I've learned through my partnership with Sid Michael and others that dealerships will never work on a pay-per-lead model, and it's because of the exposure, like I told you, right? So how do you handle it? You flat fee it. So no matter how many calls you see, just like I wrote there, you generate, they're going to pay one cost. You generate more calls, they just make out. You generate less, not as good. Now, obviously, over the long haul, it needs to be a reasonable number or they're going to cut you. And you know, typically in automotive, you get a lot more calls than in any other niche because at any given time, there's like 2 or 3% of the entire population shopping for a vehicle. So those may sound like big numbers, but they're not as hard as you may think. And you saw the example in Model 2 where we showed 371 for a used dealership here in Atlanta in 1 month. So pretty easy. But used car, now I will tell you, if you are doing a new car dealer, you really want to work with their used inventory when you do the directory model. And if you're doing a used car dealer, then you're in the right place. And they call themselves independents. But it's a great type of business to do a flat fee model with. Let's look at another one. Now, this may sound kind of crazy, but I actually have a franchise loan modification law firm. So I put down loan modification attorney. This has been all the vogue in the United States ever since the mortgage meltdown in 2008, the whole financial crisis, right, that we had with the banking centers. So in this case, these are law firms trying to work with the homeowner and legally, I guess, represent them to negotiate a loan modification with the government, with their mortgage service providers. Now, you're going to generate a lot of leads with these, especially in the places that we told you to advertise. It's a great niche if you don't know about it, and reach out to them. The lifeblood of this business is leads. They're making between $2,500 and $10,000 a pop on the front end, and $2,500 is a super small client. So 40 calls in this case would be 675. You know, you see it right here. 100 calls plus is an easy $1,500. Same thing if you're using an outsourcer. As an example, Nick that we used in Module 3, you'd pay him roughly $200 and you would net the rest on autopilot. Not bad. Let's see. I don't know if I have another scenario. I think I talked more. Yeah, the strategy here. What I want you to do is if you're working with contractors, you want to look at how Home Advisor, formerly Service Magic, prices. They do an exclusive and a shared cost by hundreds of niches and sub-niches. You know, you could be fencing or deck repair, AC, anything you think of, they have it, and it's all available on their pricing guide. Now, what I like to do, it's not that I want to be cheap, but I want to win, and I want to have this arrow in my quiver, if you will. On bullet point 2, I want to offer exclusive leads for just under the price that Home Advisor charges for a shared lead. So, depending on the niche, that allows me to price in a way that it's very hard for them to say no to. And let me tell you, like in the contractor space, which is gigantic, contractors pay gobs of money for leads. What often happens is people think that they have all this money, but buying SEO or websites or reputation, etc., doesn't always translate into a very easy to define lead. You know, this person called me, I talked a minute and a half. Right? When you're talking in that manner and you price it in a superior manner to Home Advisor or Service Magic, it'll help you get the deal. So I won't get into economics, but I have a real simple chart here for you. I want to talk about the pricing demand curve. I know that doesn't sound good, does it? Sounds like a bad day. It sounds like a class you took and you'd forgotten, thankfully. The whole point is you want to price it in a way that you get the largest number of customers. So, as you see, if you were to price it with a little dot right under that high, the amount of people that would buy it would be very, very small. The demand would be low. Whereas if you priced it under low, you'd get tons of people, but the price would be so low. The sweet spot's there in the middle. And the fundamental point is you have to experiment to find out where that price is. An easy way to do it is to ask yourself these questions, or ask 5 or 10 other people and do a little survey. It'd be great if you could talk to 10 attorneys or 10 contractors in your niche. That makes it a no-brainer. Would you buy my service for this, my lead gen service, for X price? No? What about this, Y price? Oh, you would. Would you pay this? By using 2 or 3 prices, you're testing what's called the elasticity of the pricing demand curve. You want to find that point, that equilibrium where you're making money and still getting buyers. You want to price it as high as possible without alienating our target audience. So we're going to do in our masterclass, we're going to do immense detail around pricing, because the way the local lead driver system works is heavily based on how you price. Because you could easily imagine if you were $7 low, $7, just, it sounds pretty low, right? What if you were $7 low? I'm going to skip back to one of those examples. In this case, instead of 25, you could have got 32. So with 50 calls, that's another $350. And what if you have 10 clients like that? That's $3,500 a month you left on the table because you didn't really test the elasticity of the pricing. So we're going to work on that with you, and we'll do that in the master class. Very excited to talk about that. So, in summary, we talked about our 3 models, our 3 pricing models. We talked about some important questions to ask. We gave you some examples by niche. We're going to delve into this much, much deeper in the future. But what we have coming up next, the next module, Module 5, is a sales methods or sales strategies led by Sid Michael, 20-plus years sales master. Module 6 is our objections and negotiation module, you guys. And then we have the 2 bonus modules. One is a series of real client case studies, and the other one is live interviews with successful student. In this case, it's a Florida-based student, has a pretty neat little business model. So that is it for now, and we will see you in Module 5 in the sales module. Thank you.